Be interesting to see who just randomly comes across it and
Exactly.
keeps watching.
Exactly. Supposed to give you a 3-second intro, and we'll just do brief interludes. All right, and welcome everyone to Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford from Game Source and Pop Culture Cosmos, and I'm here with my good friend, the co-owner, and what I've been told is the minority owner, because the true boss is Nicole over there. I'm just kidding. It's the co-owner of Retro City Games. It's Douglas Houghaboo. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well.
Good to have you here, and it's an honor for us to be a part of the experience here at Retro City Games, the finest game store in all of Clark County, Las Vegas, and the Henderson area.
We like to think so.
If you are here, even, or you know what, if you're even coming here to Las Vegas anytime in the near future, check out Retro City Games for all your retro gaming needs and your current gaming needs as well.
True.
I know you got some great trades in. I just wanted, before we go on, I just know you got some great trades in recently, correct?
Yes, we did.
What kinds, as far as what
the
models?
more notable stuff was Beast Wars on the N64, Complete in Box, Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo, obviously. Actually, some weirder stuff, like for the Wii U, a non-Nintendo Selects Pikmin 3, stuff like that. It's been a good array of tons of different stuff.
Sweet. I'm looking forward to checking it out myself right after the recording. I know you always get great stuff here. If you get a chance, everyone out there, if you are listening to the podcast, either on our iTunes channel or also as well on our on our Pop Culture Cosmos iTunes or podcast.com channel, you can also check them out at Retro City Games on Facebook, where they will give you constant updates on exactly what they have in stock. And you can always message you, correct?
Oh, of course, yeah. When we get bigger trades in, we try to post them up online, just kind of give people a feel of what we had and what came in during the week or day. And yeah, feel free to message us if you're looking for something, or if there's something you see that you want. We're always willing to hold stuff and try to track down what we can.
Absolutely. It's a great place indeed. I hope you get a chance to check it out. We will be recording here often, so if you want to be a part of the podcast, come on down. Send us a line. We'll tell you our recording schedule, and we're happy to have you be a part of the Pop Culture Cosmos experience. I want to also give a shout out to our good friend John Sweeney Jr., who runs the Podcast Radio Network. We thank you for allowing us again to be a part of the Podcast Radio Network schedule, lineup of great programming. If you have not checked it out yet, please check out the schedule at podcastradionetwork.com or their Facebook page so you can see their entire lineup of great shows, including ours.
A lot of great content on there.
Yes. So let's get right into it. Well, we talked about last week on the last episode with me and Josh regarding the hits and misses of the summer box office movie season. And I know you're already like pondering through it. Before we go on to the fall season, did you have some thoughts on it? I know I wanted to talk to you about that last week.
It's actually kind of bad. I mean, for me personally, it was one of those, I don't want to be the cliche guy, I'm grumpy about things that were coming out, but I actually just didn't go see a lot of the movies that I was hyped for. Because Suicide Squad and Ghostbusters primarily. I mean, I just didn't have, by the time they came out, I had really no desire to see them.
Well, it's a weird situation, because when it all totaled out, actually for the year, it is slightly up as far as overall, according to the numbers year-wide. But the summer seemed like a mixed bag, and to a lot of people, you have the same ideals as far as what a lot of people are saying as far as it being a little bit of a disappointment so far this year.
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't see the movies, but it wasn't anything. There wasn't enough that I saw before they came out. There wasn't enough in the trailers and in the hype and the marketing to make me want to go see them. So I don't know if that's a problem with advertising or if it speaks to the quality or the content, but it didn't grab myself or Nicole really. We both kind of were like, and just chose to refrain from it.
I don't blame you a bit, but we're now coming up on the fall movie season, and the fall movie season is going to be loaded with a lot of great films. What are three of the movies that stick out to you most right now as far as movies that you and Nicole will allow you to go see this upcoming fall movie season?
I'm actually not. Stumbling on this. What are you most excited for?
Well, obviously Rogue One, Star Wars, a Star Wars story,
Yeah.
Rogue One. First off, I want to tell everybody out there, yes, Star Wars: The Force Awakens, $2 billion generated in revenue. Don't expect anything close to that. If it goes half that much, I think that Disney can consider it a win, a big win.
Especially being a side story. I mean, Disney said they'll keep making movies as long as they make them money, and which I'm happy with. I'll see a movie every year. I mean, a Star Wars flick.
Because the Star Wars universe is so robust.
Yeah, I don't know what they kept of the canon though. They've been kind of secretive on that. I mean, not that I was a avid reader of the books, but there were a few that I picked up, and there's some of those story elements that were a little bit darker that I was hoping they'd incorporate, and I'm not sure if Disney is the vessel to carry that forward. But that being said, Rogue One I was really excited for until I started hearing rumors of the reshoots and that it wasn't testing well or screening well. That kind of scared me. I don't know.
And that scares that scares everyone because there's such expectations, and when you have the Star Wars name, you have the Star Wars branding, it has to live and meet up to certain expectations in order to be at that level.
Well, yeah, and you have the
or else you get the permanent stigma that the first three have got.
I don't think we'll ever get to that level. I hope not. I mean, I feel the quality of those movies as a visual medium was the problem. I mean, the stories to me not the first three, I'm sorry, the latter three, the prequel series 1, 2, and 3. I think the problem was purely visual. It was purely the aesthetics of the actual films. Because the story is good. It's a perfectly competent story. It's just, oh man,
Yeah,
that bad CG.
I hear you. It's just, like I said, I have high hopes for it. I think it will do pretty good, but I don't think anybody should be expecting anywhere near the type of numbers for Star Wars Force Awakens, because at this time last year, we were all hyped and all ready to go for Star Wars Force Awakens. The hype is not nearly there for Rogue One, but it's still, I think it will, it may actually eke out over Captain America as the top grossing movie of the year.
Okay. I think it'll be probably just, I think two things, A, Star Wars, and B, a holiday release are just the formula for a high-grossing film.
I was just saying because
sorry.
you are so adamant on your beliefs, you're pounding on the table. I just want to make sure you pound on something soft because it just registers every single time. Because that's the awesome magic of podcast audio. But another movie I think that Disney is really riding its hopes on is Doctor Strange. Now, this one seems to be having opinions all over the map, because this is even more quirky and more outside the realm for the Marvel Cinematic Universe than even Ant-Man was, as far as it's concerned. So I know
At least Ant-Man has a little more recognition.
Yes,
As far
yes.
as knowing a little more about the character from the casual consumer. At least Ant-Man's weird enough and stands out enough that you go, oh, look at that. Doctor Strange is one of those characters that I don't know if the masses will go, oh man, Doctor Strange, they're making a movie? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think the Marvel name goes a long way. I mean, the Ant-Man did not have that kind of hype behind it, and people were questioning it, but it's still, the Marvel name pushed it to over $400 million worldwide. So I think there is that benchmark, that low point, where a Marvel movie will now take it, because people have that faith that Marvel will produce a decent movie. So I think it's going to meet at least that. Whether it goes into a realm of being a hit as far as worldwide, I don't know. I really think it probably will meet the numbers and not much more than Ant-Man. But I also feel that they don't need it to, and they just need Doctor Strange as far as to play a bigger role in upcoming movies.
I could see that. I mean, I think we also, for the first time ever, we have to look at the Chinese market and wonder if that plays into it. I mean,
absolutely.
They're quickly becoming. I would say in the next year or two, will probably surpass the U.S.
That's his
in
projected,
dollars
yes.
and viewers. I mean, it's one of those things where the Chinese market, since they've lowered regulations on what can and can't be there, has really started taking over. But it's a numbers game, right? You have a billion people to draw from. And
yes, it is now currently the number 2 market, and you are right. In the next couple of years, it will surpass the U.S. market. That's very perceptive of you. and they may see Doctor Strange as something that might be very, their market might adapt to it and might embrace it more than any other market in the world. Take, for instance, Warcraft, as far as it's concerned. U.S. Market, for the most part, did not appreciate, did not like it, but it gained, almost over $300 million in China alone.
Well, it's one of those things. I think the U.S. has been so, the consumer in the U.S. has been so used to us being the driving force behind Hollywood and behind, film in general. I mean, other regions have had a little bit of influence, or there's a few movies that, have made it over here, but in general, we kind of push the envelope, and we're kind of the ones dictating what gets made and what doesn't. Does it test well in the U.S.? I think we'll see a lot quirkier and different films because of that, shift to a Chinese market where we're now a secondary thought. We're no longer that driving force. So I think there'll be a lot of things like Doctor Strange where it kind of changes our mind on things a little bit.
Exactly. I see Doctor Strange as something that will actually be able to meet the expectations of the previous movies from, like I said, Ant-Man, maybe the first Captain America and the first Thor, whatnot. But anybody that's expecting it to meet that level of the most recent hits for the Marvel series have got another thing coming. But I don't think, like I said, Disney and Marvel need to meet those expectations.
I don't think they need to. I think as long as it's profitable, like you said, it'll carry through to other franchises. I think it'll really pull through to... I think it'll really pull them through the next coming years. I think it's the same thing with Rogue One. I think Rogue One will derive sales of obviously figures and toys, and now you have a whole new line of characters you can bring out. I'm sure there'll be games that play into that aspect. It's not just about the movie anymore.
Exactly.
It's about breaking even or doing, fairly well with the movie, but what can we market, what can we sell, what can we merchandise? Indeed. And those are the numbers I don't think we saw with Ant-Man really either. We saw box office sales of, 400 million, but I know like Nicole's little brothers were all over. I mean, their backpacks are Ant-Man backpacks. I mean, it's something that carried through for that age group.
It still seems though that Ant-Man fell into a niche category or niche
definitely.
fandom, and I think Doctor Strange will do the same thing as far as it's concerned. But I do think, like I said, Doctor Strange no longer has to meet high expectations. Let's say if it was brought out earlier in the the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So,
I'd agree.
Are you a Harry Potter fan?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. I'm on that fence too. Fantastic Beasts is another one that's going to be coming out that I think a lot of weighty expectations are on, carrying the Harry Potter name in some form. As far as it's concerned, I know it's going to be used somewhat prominently in their marketing. I think they need to attach it to it rather than make it its own story. As far as it's concerned, if they do so, I think it will generate a lot of interest, and also as well, while it will not meet the Harry Potter movies per se, I think that it will go a long way to, if it's a good movie, that it will go a long way to meeting at least a lot of box office predictions.
I don't know, because I can't, the name is escaping me right now, but the screenplay that recently came out.
Oh, The Cursed Child?
Was selling out everywhere.
Yes.
And it's a screenplay, literally.
Yes.
So, I mean, and it was outpacing some of the books at launch. I don't know how it did overall. I mean, I kind of saw the first couple weeks, but I don't know. I think Harry Potter, Nicole and I were talking about the other day, I think it's kind of this generation's Star Wars. I really do, as far as that cultural phenomenon that, kids latch onto. Their parents thought it was cool. It kind of bridged that gap between movies and books. I don't know. I think it's a little bit of a cultural thing now that it's kind of like Star Wars. People just go see it to see it.
Indeed.
So, like I said, I don't know if it'll do as well as the old movies, but
no,
I think it'll definitely exceed people's expectations.
I agree with you. I see like a $500 to $700 million worldwide as far as performance from that, which would make it one of the stronger outings this year. I think if anybody is asking for $1 billion or close to $1 billion from that series, like the previous iterations of the Harry Potter's film universe, then I think they're going to be sadly disappointed. I think there's still going to be a lot of Harry Potter fans going. I think there's going to be a lot of interest, and then if the movie is good, I could see, like I said, $750 million, which for Warner Brothers obviously is no chunk of change.
True. Has there been a movie this year that grossed $1 billion?
Yes, there's actually two. Currently, Zootopia at a little over $1 billion, and then of course Captain America: Civil War.
Okay.
According to Box Office Mojo, leads the world at $1.1 billion. There's two $900 million films, which is The Jungle Book, and then also
I knew The Jungle Book came close. I didn't know it was 900, but I knew they came close.
yes,
But
and Finding Dory. They're both in the 900 millions. And then Batman versus Superman, which I know everybody is, not, all over the place on, and that's another discussion for another day. Whether or not that's been deemed a financial success, failure, or in the middle, depends on who you ask. But that's somewhere in the high 800s as well. So
that's another movie that I skipped. I don't know. It just by the time it came out, I was just over it.
And that's what's so funny about this year is because you have those. You didn't know off the top of your head which ones, and a lot of people wouldn't know that as far as that's concerned either, because they don't. The numbers have, like last year when you had Jurassic World and you had the Fast and Furious. You had those breaking just box office records right and left, and then you had the Force Awakens on top of it.
Yeah.
But actually, it's funny because this year is actually trending at least at or above the overall level for the year, which is kind of strange, even though you don't have that true super duper mega hit as far as it's concerned. So it's a lot of good films still on the way. Is there one film that you have seen that you might be looking forward to this upcoming fall season that maybe people aren't quite as familiar with?
I wish I had a better answer, but no. I've been a little bit of a recluse when it comes to the movie scene, just for that reason. I feel like I've been burned with a lot of movies recently with a Sausage Party. It literally it's the first time in a long time I went to a movie that I was like, wow, every funny moment was in the trailers. It really pulled me off.
And it wasn't really the movie you were expecting?
Not even close. I can't even. Not even close. Is there anything you're looking forward to?
Well, as I got it on right now, Mrs. Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. What can I say? When we have, Mr. Tim Burton involved in the project, who's in the past has brought out some really, really good stuff, but has not seen the type of success in later years that he might have. Actually, this is a good time for a lot of former filmmakers who've had former success, like Oliver Stone is coming up with Snowden and whatnot. M. Night Shyamalan, he's coming up with a new film as far as it's concerned. That's the one with the star of X-Men.
Yeah,
where he's playing the different roles, and then also this one as well that Tim Burton is involved in. I believe somebody else is directing, but he is involved as far as they're throwing his name out there as far as being part of the production.
He's one of those guys that even when he's producing, he has a hand in directing a little bit. I mean, he's very involved with the things he puts his name to.
And I've seen the trailer, and that Tim Burton look is there. So we'll see how much more that these former great directors, how much weight they still hold with audiences. I know Sully, that just came out with Clint Eastwood. That is performing well at the box office as we speak. So at least with Clint Eastwood, he still has some clout as far as it's concerned because he's had some recent success. But when it comes to these other directors, they're looking to bounce back in a big way.
Sure.
So, like I said, it looks like a very promising fall season. Jack Reacher, there's going to be, as far as it's concerned, a sequel to that's coming out very shortly. The Blair Witch movie, as far as it's concerned, the actual true sequel. I don't know if that genre has come and gone as far as the found footage type movies.
It can be done well. Nicole and I are huge horror fans.
Mm-hmm.
And The Blair Witch is one I've never been able to make it through. I have fallen asleep every time I've watched that movie.
Yeah.
I literally I cannot get through the movie. So the fact they're remaking it just... I have almost no desire to go see it. I'm like that kind of person. I don't know.
Well, that's one success story I think that comes from this year is there's been a lot of low-budget horror movies that have succeeded and have succeeded on a very high level. been very profitable. I think a lot of film studios are going to jump on that, and you're going to see even more come out in the near future. So the success of Blair Witch, even though it comes on the hinges of let's say, kids are back in school and whatnot, maybe movie audiences are not as prone to go see films and whatnot. But for a good couple weekends, it could prove out to be something that could be worthwhile. I'm just anxious to see what will happen with that.
It's surprising they got away from it. I mean, the best grossing Labor Day weekend film in the last decade is the remake of Halloween.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, horror has always kind of played that part of that, that summer blockbuster, like date movie type thing. And they've traditionally always been low budget. Even the big budget movies never touch the big budgets that you'd see in like a Titanic or in a an Avatar type thing. We never even come close to your normal summer blockbuster like a superhero movie.
And even though Don't Breathe was the top grossing movie over the past Labor Day weekend, it wasn't nearly at the level because it had already debuted already. And obviously, even though it was still number one, the numbers dictated that maybe the Labor Day weekend is not the weekend anymore for movie audiences to go out in droves. So
Don't Breathe is one I want to see, and actually I guess the one that I'm really looking for now that I think about it, when you talked about obscure horror movies, it's not a horror movie but Yoga Hosers.
Oh, there you go.
Tusk was one of my favorite movies of that year, and Yoga Hosers just came out. I don't know if it's nationwide. I know it had a limited release at first, but if you haven't seen Tusk and you like weird horror comedies, that's a must-see.
That's from Kevin Smith, correct?
Yeah, it's Kevin Smith's passion project. Started out as actually on his podcast, the Smodcast, and it was just a joke they were talking about, and they said, "Hey, that would actually make a pretty awesome movie," and they did it. And the unique thing they did with it is they spent virtually no money on advertising. Mm-hmm. The movie itself, I think, cost $3 million to make. They spent, I think, it was $1 million on advertising, and it was all just self-produced, self-published, and everything. And I think they ended up making it with something like, with DVD sales and everything, like $12.5 million. But that was a huge success for a $4 million film.
Exactly.
I mean, and so I think that might be a little bit of you could come with the new Mallrats and things like that. That might be a little bit of a foreshadowing to how that's going to be handled. And
I've got one last thing for you. Since we are in the best video game store in all of Las Vegas, Assassin's Creed. That is coming out, in partnership with the Ubisoft, their movie division, and hopefully that they are hoping on this kickstarting their own movie division, almost like a movie universe, so to speak, as far as transporting their games into film. Michael Fassbender, the trailers have come out. He's obviously trying to emulate some of the moves, even though he's not. He's admittedly said he is not the greatest fan in the world of the series. But like I said, with the story itself being all over the place in the previous iterations, that may not necessarily be something that's at a disadvantage if you can create a good story out of it.
I would agree. I'm always leery with video game movies. I think with most, we've seen all-star casts before. Max Payne. I mean, we've seen big names attach themselves, even in an action movie world like Doom and stuff like that. How could you do Doom bad? It's a cheesy action, premise that has the simplest story ever. Portal to hell was opened, kill all the demons, and they turn it into this extra chromosome virus type thing that first person The Rock running around on an alien space station. So I'm always leery. I don't know. It's everything from the U-Bowl movies to there's a few that are okay, but there's nothing out there that I've seen that's made me excited for the next video game movie. So I always keep them at arm's length.
This might be the last big budget video game movie that's produced in a while. Uncharted got pushed back, and there's several other projects that may be pending the success of this movie. It's coming out during the time Rogue One is coming out, so it will have heavy competition. So all eyes in the video gaming world, and also as far as to the extent the movie industry, it will be squarely focused, not necessarily on Rogue One, but more so on movies like Assassin's Creed. Can these video game adaptations actually score big with audiences?
The one that I'm actually surprised that hasn't been made, you were talking about Uncharted. Uncharted, to me, they kind of have to sell that premise, but this right here, God of War.
There you go.
Why has God of War never been made into a movie? I know they've talked about it before. It blows my mind.
Simple revenge movie. You growl a lot. There you go, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have literally an entire mythos to pull from. You have a character that's very easy to push in any direction because while he's one-dimensional, he does have a little bit of emotion to him.
Yes.
But, I mean, it seems like a simple, easy, just fun action movie.
Exactly.
But they've never done it. They want to do the quirky with the Ratchet and Clank movies and the Assassin's Creed, and I think it's a little harder sell on those things.
Well, if the new God of War does perform strongly when it comes out to the PlayStation 4, which we will talk more of in our next segment, then I think that might change some minds as far as how it can translate to audiences onto the film screen. So that's something definitely we could look forward to indeed if the game itself hits big with audiences or with gamers, as far as that's concerned. Want to thank you for joining us again. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos with Douglas Houghaboo. This is Gerald Glassford, and when we return, we will be talking a little bit more about the PlayStation 4. They made some announcements. We'll see whether or not Douglas likes them, or maybe not. We'll find out right after the break. Come back.
She needs help.
Oh, then go.
Can you just do a second?
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us on the Retro City Games Facebook page. We are currently in a break, but we will be heading back soon. If you would like to hear again the Pop Culture Cosmos show in its entirety, it'll be 1 hour. It'll be on the Podcast Radio Network, airing Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also as well, later that week, it will be updated to the Pop Culture Cosmos iTunes and podcast.com page as far as it's concerned. So if you are interested, you go to those channels. You can subscribe. I'm sure everyone out there knows as far as it's concerned, if what podcast they like, they can subscribe, and it'll automatically, as soon as it gets uploaded, it'll hit right to it. Or like I said, the Podcast Radio Network airs every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do appreciate you joining us. We're going to have a deep and heavy discussion on the new PlayStation 4s that were introduced. Well, actually, I know some of them were out and already in the wild, but that were introduced. And we will be having that discussion very shortly. I want to appreciate your patience. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening. We'll be coming back here in just a couple seconds.
All right, sorry about that.
Oh, no, where's your phone? And we're back with Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford once again, along with my good friend Douglas Houghaboo, the co-owner of Retro City Games, and obviously I got to make sure Nicole is always taken care of in that realm. So there was a little announcement as far as it's concerned that Sony has made recently in regards to new PlayStations that are on the way. In fact, this week, as this is being aired, guess what? People are going to be able to buy the new PlayStation Slim, which I know was already out in the wild as far as it's concerned. People were already able to take a look at it, but officially the PlayStation 4 Slim will be available to audiences this week. Your thoughts on that first before we go into the PlayStation 4 Pro?
So they kind of tie into each other, in my opinion, on the Slim. I like the idea of a Slim console right now. I am a little weirded out by the price point of $299. I was expecting a sub $250 going into the holiday season, unless that's going to be. I could see bundles at $299, maybe 2 games, extra controllers, that kind of stuff. Because the PlayStation 4 can already be had at a lot of times for about that $350 price range. So you're selling new hardware that in essence should, in theory, cost them less. So I was hoping for $200, but I wasn't expecting it, and I was hoping to see $100 PS3s, kind of like they did with the PlayStation 2. That's what I was expecting. Didn't get that. I like the look of it. I'm not sure where it fits in with the Pro coming out.
With the Pro and with the Slim, I want to ask you this, and this is not meant to be a slight on Sony or anything of that nature, but over the course of time in their console history, they have shown, in fact, every one of these companies has shown a little bit of arrogance as far as once they have had a little bit of success. Do you think that the announcements of the Slim and the Pro, what it comes with, what it's priced at? Before we get into the Pro, do you think there may have been a little bit of arrogance because they're performing so well on a worldwide basis?
I think on the Slim side, like I just said, with the price point and everything, yes. With the Pro is exactly what I want it to be. A better VR experience, a faster processor, kind of trying to keep pace with PC gaming. I already pre-ordered a Pro. I didn't pre-order a Slim at all.
Okay.
Because, I have a PS4. I could see it being a good entry spot for somebody. Or entry point for somebody, but I'm not sure how it fits into the dynamic of the PlayStation family. I don't know. It doesn't seem to do much different. When the Slim PS3 came out, they were having issues with the PS3 costing so much.
Yeah.
So the idea was, let's get out at a cheaper price point and let's get it out where it costs us less. Units were costing more to produce than they were selling them for, and that was a big issue. Same with the PlayStation 2 era. We've already sold 100 million PlayStation 2s. How do we sell more? Well, we get a cheaper, smaller packaging, easier to ship. This, I was hoping to see the Pro model kind of be integrated into that Slim. I know it's hard from a technical standpoint from the engineering, the hardware, but that's what I was hoping for, because if they came out of the gate with a Slim Pro, so it's a slim console to take up less space, less real estate in your game room, but it's also going to be a more powerful machine. You might have had people jump on it that just wanted to upgrade.
Yeah.
Now you're selling the same kind of form factor with just a little better visuals. Well, a lot better visuals supposedly, but I don't know how much third-party publishers and developers are going to jump on that. I know the in-house publishers are probably going to jump in and give into it really heavily, but I don't know how much the Ubisofts and the Activisions of the world are going to spend extra time and money to make the games look that much better and optimize them for the Pro.
I did see some good examples. Obviously, the new Mass Effect Andromeda caught everyone's eye, especially with the catchphrase HDR and high dynamic range.
I've had to explain HDR probably 30 times in the last 2 days.
So there you go. It's now on everybody's lips.
Oh yeah.
And as 4K, as I've told you before, as 4K becomes more affordable, as HDR becomes more affordable, it will be something more and more consumers are interested in. Are a lot of consumers interested in it now? No, but starting this fall, and actually starting usually Black Friday, when you see a huge upswing in TV purchases.
I think the interest is there. It's just that price point is so hefty.
But that price point will be coming down at least that during that time period of Black Friday, where 4K and HDR TVs will actually be probably well under $1,000 as far as it's concerned for the first time in a long time. We're in abundance, and there will be a lot of selection for people that can reach out and can afford those type of units, where they couldn't have previously when they were $2,000-$3,000. Yes, there are still very expensive sets that are $2,000, $2,500, $3,000, but now companies are starting to get that price down on the TVs, and I think that's going to be very important for the future success of the PlayStation 4 Pro, the PlayStation 4 Slim, and then also the upcoming, the Scorpio, and then what's right now the Xbox One S. The PlayStation 4 Pro, are you concerned as far as the major complaint that's out there as far as not having a 4K Blu-ray? Because the Xbox One S, I believe, has it, if I'm not mistaken.
It wasn't something as a consumer I was looking for. I have a 4K enabled Blu-ray player, even though I don't have a 4K TV. It was just the last Blu-ray player. I tend to not use my gaming systems as Blu-ray players, but that's just from I don't want to wear them out. It's a gaming machine to me. I really don't. The difference in wear and tear on a laser when you're using a Blu-ray where it's always accessing data versus playing a game where it's only accessing to load is a lot of strain on it. So for me, from the early PS3 days, I haven't. I think it's a dumb move. I think it's extremely dumb. For me, it doesn't affect it, but I think it'll affect sales heavily.
I think so too, as well.
I think very heavily.
I really think so too. 4K Blu-ray was something I personally do, because I do use it as far as is concerned, my PS4 and my Xbox One. I do use them to play discs, to play Blu-rays, and I do want a 4K TV, HDR TV at some point in time. But to make that investment, I want a system that'll go along with it that'll be able to produce it at the highest quality rate.
Is it the hardware that's limiting it, do we know, or is it the software?
I believe it's the hardware.
Okay.
I believe the hardware itself, it will not be a 4K Blu-ray player per se. It'll stream 4K. It'll obviously play games at 4K if you have a supporting system as far as that's concerned TV-wise. But it will not have an actual physical 4K Blu-ray player. And to my knowledge, Sony will not be making an update cannot make an update to make it so.
Because that was one of the things that's been irritating me for a while with Sony with the PlayStation 2 emulator. That there's a shell of one already on the PS4, but they just haven't. If they have finished it, they haven't released it.
Yeah.
And I was hoping it wasn't another promise like that, where down the road, we'll get it, and then here we are 3 years later, and still haven't gotten it.
I know. Things change. Obviously, announcement recently that Bethesda was going to do, mods for both PS4 and Xbox One, and they were so happy about that. And everything mods came out to Xbox One for their games, but PlayStation, Sony finally could put the kibosh on that as for the time being, which is Sony's. Once everybody had a love fest with them for the past 3 years, that's starting to fade away as far as it's concerned, and that type of trust and that type of interest in their products might be eroding a bit. Do you see? Are you starting to see some cracks as far as it's concerned in the success of the Sony PlayStation 4 juggernaut?
Personally, yes. From the other side of the counter, being a business owner, the issue right now is the competitors aren't offering anything better. Even if the Scorpio is going to be amazing, it's going to launch anywhere from 9 months to a year after
next
the
holiday,
after the Pro, which is going to give a huge install base advantage to the Pro.
And no one knows the future is what the NX will be.
Exactly, and the NX. I mean, if the rumors are correct, which Eurogamer isn't wrong that often, and I'll get blasted for that, but they aren't wrong too often. It's not going to fill that void in what people want for Nintendo. I mean, you already have a huge install base with handhelds. Is another handheld hybrid the answer? I mean, I can dock any tablet onto a TV. I can dock my phone onto a TV. I mean, I've literally played an emulator on my phone with a Wiimote on my TV. So, I mean, it's doable. It's just...
But that's the only thing that's good that I think is coming out of this current battle between Sony and Microsoft, is that they're focusing on trying to maximize the performance of the console experience. They're trying to get it as close to a PC performance as possible. Can they replicate it? No, not 100%. But to get it to the point where people can sit down in front of a 4K television with HDR and just sit there in awe and be inspired by the actual dynamic range while they're playing a game, and say, this really looks good. This really, really looks good. That's what they're shooting for. Nintendo, we'll talk about them on another day, but they're... we haven't seen the specs yet for 100%, but if that's the case, they're not meeting those expectations right now that the consumer may have in mind. But like I said, we'll wait and see for when NX is debuted. We'll see what it looks like, see the specs and whatnot.
See, and I'm outside of the range, I guess, of that typical gamer, where my least favorite console this generation was actually the One. I actually thoroughly enjoyed the Wii U. My problem was the software. There wasn't enough games. The visuals themselves, I don't mind. Even with the Pro, I don't think I'm as excited for the 4K aspect of it as the faster RAM and the faster processor. I'm hoping for bigger worlds, more in-depth.
I was also hoping for a 2 terabyte as far as it's concerned. If you're not going to give me a 4K Blu-ray player, you should have given me, for $399, you should have given me a 2 terabyte hard drive. I thought that was 1 terabyte. As you gamers out there know, 1 terabyte will fill up almost as fast as 500 gigabytes.
Oh, especially, this is the first generation where I've actually cared about the size of my hard drive. Before, my PS3, for the longest time, I ran off, I think it was a 300 was the model, and I had no issues because games weren't that big, and I'm not a big digital downloader, but installing games and stuff, 8-10 gigs, wasn't a problem. But now, I remember the first game that popped into my PlayStation 4 was Killzone Shadowfall. And I think it's 52 or 56 gigs, and I went, oh man. I go, this is going to be a problem. And I'm at the point, actually, because I have an original 500, where I have to uninstall older games I was playing to play new ones.
And that's that's a continuous thing for myself as well, because most new games, Uncharted 4, whatever it is you're going to play, as far as Fallout 4, whatever comes out these days as far as a major release, they're 50 to 70 gigs. You're not going to be able to avoid it. So 500 gigs or a terabyte will just go just like that. So two terabytes to me would have been a nicer addition if they weren't going to put in the 4K Blu-ray player. I'm not really sold on the PlayStation 4 Pro as far as upgrading. I know I've already upgraded with you guys once as far as it's concerned with my PlayStation 4, but I'm really, really concerned that the PlayStation 4 Pro is not something that as many fans are going to be interested in. I think a lot of people will be waiting for Scorpio before they do a major upgrade. I think they're going to be concentrating first on upgrading their television before they upgrade their consoles.
I just hope the games are there for it. That's my biggest concern for both consoles. I hope the games are there to make it worth it. Like I said, I pre-ordered it an hour after they announced it. I did the Pro. I'm waiting for it, but I hope there's that big jump.
After you watched it on my phone.
Yep.
There you go. And it's funny because we were talking. I thought Mass Effect was going to show up as far as it's concerned, and sure enough, it did. I don't know if you got to see the footage, but it looks really, really good.
I keep meaning to go back to that series. It was one of those series that I started playing the first one and I couldn't get into it, and now everybody tells me I have to play it. So
you have to play it.
I need to go back.
As someone who has played quite extensively with the Mass Effect series. It is one of my all-time favorites. It meets right up there. Well, I know if you see me as far as streaming from my house, you see Nathan Drake on one side and Shepard on the other. So it's tell you, it's my love for that series as well. It shows no bounds, and I'm looking forward to Andromeda when it releases, with or without the HDR enhancement. But I'm looking forward to one day playing it so that I can see it in all of its full, glory as far as it's concerned.
Yeah, I guess that's the other side of it is I guess, companies tend to, when they make a game, have to scale it back a little bit and optimize it for consoles, because it's always better to be a little bit ahead of the curve, frame rate and resolution and all those kind of things, and having too many particles moving around as opposed to not enough. But I'm wondering how the optimization on the older models of the PS4 will be. Will it just be kind of thrown together, kind of like the last iteration of Call of Duty's, where, whole sections are cut out because they just were, I hate to say, they were too lazy to go in and actually do it. Have you seen the screenshots for PS3 versus PS4?
Yes.
Where whole levels. It's only multiplayer on the disc, and there's whole sections. I understand a drop in quality, but a full 4 or 5 vehicles that were sitting there wrecked are no longer there, and there's just a planter. It's one of those, like, it was just like, we don't want to deal with it.
Exactly.
And I hope that doesn't happen. Sony and Microsoft Sony's promised, a couple days ago, that won't happen.
Well, it can't, because there's 40 million PlayStation 4s out there in the wild.
And not if they're forcing you into a new console generation. Is this really a 4.5 or is it a 5?
I think it's still a 4.5. I don't think this is a new iteration per se. I think this is just a hybrid off of that. I even think the Scorpio, to an extent, is a hybrid off of that, because it will, unless they market it differently, substantially, as far as it's concerned, I still think they will attach it to the Xbox One brand.
I really hope that Microsoft doesn't. I really hope they come out of the gates and say, Xbox One, that's our GameCube, or I'm sorry, N64, and we're just going to move on and kind of, hey, we're just gonna go right into the GameCube era and just keep going.
Well, I'm fascinated to find that out, and I know you are as well, Doug.
Definitely.
Coming up, a certain series turned 50 recently, and I want to hear Doug's thoughts exactly on his memories of Star Trek. Coming up right after the break. Thanks again for everyone on Facebook on as far as it's concerned, Retro City Games. I've had over 108 unique viewers. Truly appreciate you checking us out. While Doug goes and checks on something right now, just want to remind everyone, if you want to hear the podcast in full, it will be edited into a 1-hour format on the Podcast Radio Network. That'll be on Mondays, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. And also as well, it will be available on the Pop Culture Cosmos iTunes channel and the Pop Culture Cosmos podcast.com channel. If you get a chance, check it out. We truly appreciate it. We hope you're enjoying the program. We're just going to have one segment left where we talk about Star Trek. That it recently hit 50 and whatnot. So we hope you stay tuned for that. And again, we want to thank you for checking us out here at Pop Culture Cosmos. We're here at the store. We're here at Retro City Games. If you get a chance, if you have not stopped by Retro City Games, and why haven't you? Shame on you. How you doing out there? Check us out as far as it's concerned. The store, Doug and Nicole have done a great job as far as promoting and taking care of customers as far as their retro gaming needs. It's Retro City Games. What can I say? They have a great location here. If you get a chance, check them out. Retro City Games. Doug is coming back now for our final segment. We appreciate his cooperation and tolerating me for as much as he can. They've made some space here for us, and we truly appreciate it. We're going to try and be here on a weekly basis to hopefully not annoy him and Nicole as little as possible, but we truly appreciate their input. And hopefully, if you are interested, come on down. We'll or send us a message at Pop Culture Cosmos, and we can coordinate something as far as we'll let you know when we're coming down here to record. And we'd sure like to hear your thoughts as well. We keep it clean because Podcast Radio Network, even though they have their own varying style, we like to keep it clean. So we're looking forward to not only the Podcast Radio Network, but also as well expanding that to other stations. So, all right, we're coming back here And we're back here at Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford, along with my good friend Douglas Houghaboo, co-owner of Retro City Games. I've got a couple corrections from last week. I do apologize. I kept on having Deus Ex, Human Revolution on the brain. It is actually Deus Ex, Mankind Divided is the actual new release. So I want to apologize, and that's what Josh had such a glowing review on last week. So again, I apologize for that. And also another small correction. Alice the Looking Glass, even though it hasn't met the numbers at anywhere near what Disney had hoped, it has beaten out John Carter's worldwide take, but just by a little as far as it's concerned. But I think John Carter, to me, was the better film, but that's just me saying something. It always seems to be always watched. It was on the other night, so it's always is a watchable movie whenever it comes on. So, but that being the case, this is Pop Culture Cosmos, collaboration between Retro City Games, Rob McCallum Films. And if you get a chance, check out robmccallumfilms.com for his great lineup of films, including one that this man right here has produced. A little bit more about Box Art.
Box Art?
Yes. Tell us a little bit more about Box Art the documentary. If you didn't check out episode 1, they have a detailed update on that, and also there's a YouTube video as well on Rob McCallum Films' YouTube site.
We did an update last week. We spent the last week in Seattle filming with Tim Gerv, the designers behind the classic series for the NES and the Super Nintendo Virtual Boy boxes as far as the design layout. The reason they went from the vertical shift to the horizontal boxes.
Yeah.
We did some interviews with Janelle, who worked at ColecoVision, handling the arcade ports of ColecoVision games.
Yeah.
And also some of the box art. She also handled the level design for Age of Empires and the Doom series from Doom 2.
I remember that. I remember focusing on that one. It's a real good story, and I hope even if you check out the series when it comes out, check it out, especially for that one, because
and then that tied into the next artist we interviewed was Gerald Brom.
Yes,
who is actually the artist behind Doom 2, the cover and the cover art for Diablo 2. So great to sit down with him, especially him. I've been a fan of him for 10 plus years.
Well, when you cover Doom and when you cover Doom 2, I mean, when you go into that, for me, that's something I can relate to because I have such fond experiences of those two games. I've told you before, when I worked in the special effects industry, at times when there was a downtime, we would all get together and do the old land from floor to floor, as far as it's concerned, with big, huge, these are $15,000 workstations, and what did we do? We played Doom!
Right?
Yes.
And that's what was awesome, is it was, you could see even his passion for it, where he's an artist, he doesn't have time to play games. and he kind of alludes to the fact that if it wasn't Doom, he wouldn't have done it.
Exactly.
And there's a bigger story there that I won't give away. Got to see box art to when it comes out. But you could see the passion there for that series, even with him. So I think that kind of shows off in the quality of the art and just how good that cover is. I mean, everybody, you could pull off Doom 2 off that, and people would go, "Oh, Doom."
Exactly.
It's so iconic that it was a pleasure to talk to him. And then he is one of, and it sounds cheesy and cliche, the nicest people I have ever met in my life.
Sweet.
He is an incredibly great host.
Obviously sounds nicer than me, that's for sure. But I tell you what, that's Doug and Nicole are helping produce Rob McCallum's directed film, actually the docuseries, Box Art, the docuseries. If you want, check it out. He has updates and info on robmccallumfilms.com. Also, as well, his other films, you can find out how to get two films that really come, hit the heart for us. Nintendo Quest, the big hit from last year, and also as well the Nintendo Quest Power Tour, which may have some appearances by two people. I know, as far as it's concerned. So check that out. That's available on DVD, available for digital, and also as well Blu-ray.
And then his other film that he's working on right now, He-Man: The Power of Grayskull.
Yes,
it's the definitive look at the history of He-Man, all the way from a toy company to a TV and film and everything in between.
That's a collaborative effort, I think. Is
yes,
that correct?
that is. He's one of 4 people working on it. It's the same. Man, I'm sure with names. The same company that did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles doc a couple years back.
Okay.
They got picked up by Universal, coincided kind of with the film, and I believe it's actually an extra on the DVD or the Blu-ray release.
Well, I remember Rob scowling at me when I told him, I said, will you guys devote like a 10-minute segment to that one animation that kept on using He-Man, where he's running and stopping and then running again. So didn't think he liked that one, but I'm definitely looking forward to that. As someone who actually sat at home after school and watched a few episodes as far as it's concerned with He-Man and Battles of Skeletor, and then obviously migrating to She-Ra and all that. Obviously that film will touch on that as well, so I'm looking forward to that. And let's not forget the award-winning Missing Mom. If you've not been able to get a chance to see it, hopefully you want to keep an eye out for it, because I got a chance to review it. My review is available on either the nuherald.com or yourgamesource.com in case you missed it section.
His film won best, I believe it was best doc at the Atlanta Film Festival.
Yes, and then overseas as well. He just recently got an award.
And he just got into, I believe, don't quote me on the number, I think 5 more film festivals.
Yes.
He's gotten into now. So, it's making its rounds and it's doing really well.
Yes.
Awesome film. I had the chance to see it as well. Screening about a year back, and it's good. It's powerful.
I gave it a high review, 9.0 out of 10. I really, really, really thought it was a good movie. Really, tugs at your heartstrings. RobMcCallumFilms.com has all the info on it. And he's a part of the pop culture cosmos. In fact, he actually created the name, so I got to give him props on that. I do also want to give a shout out to our friends at Mario Party Wars. If you get a chance, check them out on Facebook, Mario Party Wars. If you're interested at all in what they have to offer as far as the Mario Party scene, they stream constantly on Twitch. They give you updates as far as it's concerned, not only on local level here in Las Vegas, but their thoughts, and they've connected worldwide with a number of individuals who enjoy the Mario Party series. So if you get a chance, check them out, Mario Party Wars on Facebook. Game Source, we share hundreds and hundreds of articles each week on the video game scene. If you're interested to know what's the latest and greatest in video games, check us out, Game Source on Facebook and Twitter. And then last but not least, Pop Culture Cosmos, where we detail everything as far as in the world, well, what do you want to say, pop culture, geekdom, nerddom, whatever you want to say, from movies,
all
TVs.
The cool stuff.
Yes, all the cool stuff. Movies, TVs, video games, technology, comic books, esports. We touch on board gaming, which is something I want to talk about in a later episode as far as the rise that is concerned. I know we touched on it really the other day, you and I.
It's coming back.
Exactly. So we touch on all those subjects and bring articles and information on all those subjects on Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook and also on Twitter. Twitter wouldn't give us an extra S, so it's Pop Culture Cosmos there. But it's Pop Culture Cosmos. You just type it in, you'll find us. And we truly appreciate you liking, subscribing, or also as well, following Retro City Games, and all of the other people involved, the entities involved with Pop Culture Cosmos. Our final segment is here, and guess what? You're officially old because Star Trek is now 50 years old. At least I'm old, that's for sure. I'm almost as old as the series itself, which doesn't give me much encouragement. But turned 50 recently. Your thoughts on Star Trek as a whole, what it's done for pop culture, and your memories as far as the series is concerned.
So I didn't grow up watching Star Trek, obviously when it first came out. That was way before my time, but it was one of those things. During dinner every night, we always had on the Sci-Fi channel. And before Sci-Fi, there was something else. I can't remember. They used to play it on. And every night about, I think it was 5:30 or the 5 o'clock time slot, was an episode of Star Trek. So to me, it was all new. And I know it grabbed me at a very early age. And what's always impressed me about Star Trek is, and most people don't realize it, the original series only had 3 seasons.
That's correct.
And it started this whole phenomenon. It was something so different and so out of the norm.
Not even 80 episodes.
Yeah, it's really not that long of a running show, and people can still reference. Anybody listening, if you ask them, oh, what's their favorite Star Trek episode, whether they're a big fan or not, whether it's the Tribble episode or whatever, they have
They have
some iconic, image of that. And then William Shatner did a great job of hyping himself as that persona, into the later years. But I think that original series just kind of sparked off something different, that you don't need a big budget, you don't need A-list celebrities, and you can still just with good writing create an amazing experience. Most of the set was stuff found that was being thrown away from other sets. Some of the lights on the control panels and stuff are Christmas lights with plastic over them. It's one of those shows that kind of just said screw you to everything that was going on at the time and just did their own thing. And I think it's kind of carried on to now. A little bit. It's kind of inspired a lot of things since.
It does. A lot of sci-fi is concerned. The science fiction as a whole in the modern era owes a lot to Star Trek.
Well, and the fact that it was actually science fiction. A lot of people lump a lot of things into science fiction that aren't science fiction, like Star Wars. Star Wars is much more on the fantasy, and it doesn't really deal with the technical or even a science standpoint of it. They put that science in the forefront of the exploration, and actually this is the new technology, and this is this, and they kind of told an interesting narrative along with that.
Yeah. And I was one of the actual, I didn't obviously see the original series as I stated earlier, but I did watch the reruns when it first started gaining some steam in the mid-'70s when I was a kid. And I just appreciate, as far as it's concerned, what they've done over the course of 50 years. I think when the series, and I say series because there's been several series, several iterations, when it works, it focuses not just on the sci-fi aspect, but also the interpersonal relationships. Obviously, there's a reason why everybody has come to know Kirk, Spock, and Dr. McCoy. There's a reason why so many people are familiar with Star Trek: The Next Generation as far as that crew is concerned, and how they interacted with each other. When the series actually works its best, I think the interpersonal relationships really mesh, and I think people enjoy that. The rebooted series, as far as it's concerned, why did that do so well initially right off the bat? Star Trek Beyond aside, because that has not met expectations. But the first two, as far as it's concerned, I think, whatever you want to say about Into Darkness, it still correlates the fact that there's a relationship there that they were able to make cohesively between the crew, and especially Kirk and Spock.
Well, and agreed. It transcends also just the medium of the film into real world issues as well.
Diversity as far as it's concerned.
Even at the time, not that they were openly gay, but hiring gay actors was unheard of at the time. Really not to that extent. Even the interracial. Oh God.
Well, the first interracial, Uhura and Kirk, the first interracial kiss, as far as it's concerned. That was an iconic moment in television history.
And that was censored in certain parts of the country. Literally couldn't be played. It was breaking down, not just relationships on screen, but in the real world as well. And I think they kind of carried that into Next Generation, where there was a lot of those themes that were touched on, but they were in the background. It wasn't shoved in your face. It wasn't. But there were things you think about now, and you're like, wow, they were doing that, like you said, 50 years ago.
Exactly.
And there's still issues today.
So I want to ask you this. Star Trek has achieved a level of success and a big-time cultural footprint in our society. What's left for Star Trek, and where do you think it's going to go from here? Obviously, the Star Trek Discovery, show is going to be coming out to CBS All Access. But what are your thoughts on where the series as a whole can go from here? Because I think it's actually in a tenuous position. Star Trek Beyond did not meet expectations.
The first two films I thought were good.
As did I. I thought the first two were very good.
Especially the first one I thought I thought Abrams did a great job of making it fresh and new, but still keeping the spirit of it.
It's my favorite Abrams film. Sorry, Star Wars 4. It's my favorite. I didn't say it's maybe his best or great, but it's my favorite to watch as far as it's concerned.
Even I love the Easter eggs that are planted everywhere. That's
yeah.
my favorite. But that aside,
minus the lens flare.
Oh God. Oh man. I hate lens flare so much. Side note, sorry. I think Star Trek kind of has to play off of that rebranding. I think if you were to come out with the original series now or even next gen, nobody'd watch it. And it's a little too slow. It's a little too much like everything else that's out there. I think it has to play off of that Abrams vibe where it's a little, I hate to use the word hip, but it's a little younger, a little fresher, a little heavier. I don't want to say on the CG, but on the visuals, where it gives you something entertaining and interesting to look at.
Yeah.
And not just that, awesome, story. I think there has to be that. There's too much competition now. It has to evolve. And I think it has to do a better job of branding itself. I think it's the biggest issue. You look in the 70s, the 60s, the 70s, or I'm sorry, 70s, 80s, there was a huge, the toys, the figures, you saw the stuff everywhere. There were lunchboxes and backpacks and things like that. And
it has been superseded, obviously, to an extent, by Star Wars universe. Obviously, substantially. But I do think there is hope. I know they've talked about possibly doing another one involving, the Chris Hemsworth character, possibly being interjected back into the series somehow. Maybe that will produce a little bit better stream. I said before on last week's podcast that I think the problem of Star Trek Beyond is where it was placed, because obviously critically it was actually met expectations with most critics, but where it was placed right in that July murderous row of film after film after film after film being released, right? Born and Nemo was still a big player at that time, and several others. I think had it been placed earlier in the year, I think it would have met with more success. But they really needed to go ahead and reevaluate that process. I still see a great future for Star Trek. Is there going to be some tinkering yet needed? I think so. But I hope to see this. I enjoy this current crew as the way they're constructed, as far as from a movie standpoint. So I'd like to see that continue. But I also want to say that I do have high hopes for Discovery on where. I know the first episode will be aired on CBS, so look out for that. But I'm excited to see how well it will boost the CBS All Access entity and how well it will boost the Star Trek series.
It's an interesting, place for it, but I hope it does well. I don't know. It's a very strange home for it. I don't know.
Well, obviously they're trying to market it as something as far as their their version of Netflix and Hulu and whatnot, and that could be a cornerstone for them, and let's hope that's the case. So any final thoughts on Star Trek now that it's almost ready to collect Social Security?
When you brought it up to me, I really couldn't believe it was 50 years. That really blows my mind how well they hold up now. It really.
I think that's probably the best compliment that you can give.
Yeah,
that still
really
holds
does.
up.
I mean, and it's not just holding up. I mean, they're still good. It's like the original Star Wars. They're still good. You can show it to somebody who's never heard of it, and I feel even if they didn't like the series, they'd see the quality there. And I think, like you said, that's probably the best compliment I could give it, is that it still is. It's still relevant.
I couldn't agree with you more. So I want to thank, first off, everybody that watched us on Facebook Live on the Retro City Games Facebook page. We truly appreciate you watching. Want to thank again John Sweeney Jr. for allowing us to be a part of the Podcast Radio Network schedule. If you get a chance, check us out from there first off. But if you don't, Facebook Live or our iTunes, and also as well our podcast.com channels will have the uploads of these podcasts. So check it out. And that's going to do it for Pop Culture Cosmos. Want to thank you again, Doug, for being a part of the program.
Definitely.
I want to thank Retro City Games as a whole. and the boss, Nicole, for allowing us to film here because, she's the boss.
Right?
Exactly.
Who
But
did I think that?
yes. But be that as it may, I want to thank everyone again for listening, watching, and being a part of the pop culture cosmos. Any final words?
No, thank you for letting me be a part of it. And I'd like to turn this into a weekly thing and maybe get a more concrete schedule going type of thing where we can let the listeners and everybody know when they can tune in and that kind of stuff. Hopefully in the next week or two we can do that. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That sounds like a plan.
It's been fun.
It's been fun indeed. So for Douglas Houghaboo, this is Gerald Glassford. Thank you for being a part and delving into the pop culture cosmos. It's a beautiful day in paradise, and you have yourself a great day.